The following books, stories, plays, poems, or limericks you will hear on Right Time Radio are the intellectual property of the writers and authors mentioned. Any copying, recording, or reproduction of this work is strictly prohibited without the express written consent of the author. The content of this show is the individual expression of the author and does not necessarily reflect the views of the owner of this radio station.
It's the right time for Right Time Radio. I'm Tom Bruno.
And I'm Elsa Bruno.
Welcome back to Right Time Radio every Friday morning at 10 o'clock, live from the KRLN studios with Carrie, our awesome station manager and producer. Hi, Carrie.
Hi.
And with me today, instead of Lynn Donovan, Lynn's not feeling well, so please put out some prayers on her behalf. That would be much appreciated. But with me today is my wife, Elsa Bruno.
Hello.
Hi, Els. It's so nice. We got to do rehearsal in the car today on the drive down. So, yeah, she's been with me for almost 31 years, and and Carrie's taking a picture because I'm wearing some strange things.
Well, yeah, he
today.
looks kind of like an alien right now, so I wanted to show everybody.
Great. So
well,
look
that's
on
what
Facebook.
You're right. So I figured you'd emulate your. I'm just kidding.
It's nice to be appreciated. Really.
You are.
Well, today, not only is it going to be a different show because Lynn's not here, it's going to be a different show because we're going to be talking about a work in progress. We've always been talking about completed works. We've always done excerpts from things that are right about to be published or they have been published, that we've had authors from all over the state come in and read their stuff. But Elsa knows I've been slaving away at the computer for about a year on this book. And, our show is always about stories, so we're still going to do some excerpts from this work in progress. And I'll tell you what it's called here in a minute, but it's a show about writing. It's a show for local authors and to entertain the listeners with some great stories. And we want our audience to be engaged. And so this, we've always had local writers, and it's dramatized or narrated by local talent, and it's, of course, produced here locally by Miss Carrie. So this time, though, we're going to talk about one that I'm working on. Now, I've finished the first draft of this, and I'm about to go back and start editing it. So it's going to be. I plead your patience that if some of these things are a little rough, that you put up with it.
You're going to like it.
So the name of this, I also want to just mention real quickly, coming up is our 1-year anniversary. So we're going to have a special show on the 1-year anniversary on March 13th.
Already?
We're going to have a lot of different writers come in and talk. And you know that recently, well, just last week, we started doing, ending the show with a writing tip. And I'm going to just recap that. Our writing tip last week was from Jean Alfieri. She writes all the pug stories. What's the guy, the pug's name? Zuggy.
Zuggy the pug. That's right.
Yeah. So, and her tip was make sure you're clear on why are you writing this story. And that comes into play with what we're going to talk about today. So not only are we going to read some excerpts from this work in progress, but we're also going to talk about the elements of a novel. And knowing what my why of writing this, it's that same train of thought is going to show you what the purpose and what the significance of writing is. So with that, the work in progress that we're going to talk about is called The Poet and the Knight Errant. The Poet and the Knight Errant is the draft is done. It's about 80,000 words. It's about a 300-page book, and I've let it ferment and age, and hopefully that means it's getting good like fine wine and not like rotten cabbage. And so
it's not rotten. It's sauerkraut.
Oh, that's right. Or kimchi, if you want to go Far East instead of the European.
It's just a different kind of good. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting too. I like both cabbage and sauerkraut. All right. So the title, "Poet and the Knight Errant." We've been having trouble saying that word.
Yes, we have. Errant.
The Knight Errant. Errant is sort of a pun because a knight errant is someone who goes journeying and traveling as a medieval knight in the Dark Ages used to do, and a quest for adventure. But errant also means deviating from the regular or proper course, erring or straying. And our hero, the protagonist, let's introduce some writing terms, is a guy named Don Donaldo, and he is very errant. So Elsa knows I love Don Quixote. I always thought he was a fascinating character because Miguel de Cervantes, back in the 1600s, wrote about all the knight tales that were coming out, and they were about these medieval knights who were all chivalrous, and they were going out doing great deeds and battling evil, and they had their sorcerers that would heal them miraculously, and yet they were all just very over the top, and so Miguel de Cervantes wrote Don Quixote with the idea that to make fun of all these chivalrous knight tales, and so mine is his was a parody of the knight tales, and mine's a parody of Don Quixote. So it's a parody of a parody. Don Quixote is a character that he was totally insane. He hit his head too hard, and he thought that everything he was doing was very noble and right, and that he was going out and defending the weak and being a hero to those who can't be a hero for themselves. But he was totally insane, and he was doing terrible things in the name of righteousness. And so my character, Don Donaldo, is the antithesis of that. He is a character who is a scoundrel. He's a bad dude. He does terrible things. He treats women poorly. He beats up on good people for bad reasons, but he wants to be righteous. He really does. That is his now goal, and he wants but he knows that he's not good enough. He can't make it on his own. So he is a fascinating. He's kind of the anti-hero. He's a really bad person who wants to do good things, and we're going to read from that after the break.
You were going to talk about the elements?
Oh yeah. Well, just real quick. So as we get before this first break, the things that we're going to be looking at, I'm going to read an excerpt right after the break, and then we're going to talk about things like setting. These are the 5 absolutely essential things that you have to have in a novel. The first one is setting. Where does it take place? The second one is characters, and we're going to talk about 4 or 5 different characters in this book real quick, and hopefully the excerpt will demonstrate how you introduce those characters. The next one is the plot and the conflict that drives that plot. Then the fourth thing is theme, and then the last thing is point of view. How do you decide which point of view that you use when you're just telling a story? In mine, you're going to find out that the point of view is from first person, which is very rarely done nowadays. Most of the time, it's third person limited. We'll talk about that again after the excerpt is read. So listen for those things: setting, characters, plot, theme, and point of view. And then there's one other thing. Mine is a very unusual style, but we're going to go to a commercial. Do you have any other questions, Else?
Not yet.
Okay, she's going to ask me some questions. I got to answer right because it's my wife. All right.
She's pretty smart, too.
Yeah, she's a rocket scientist.
Yes. No kidding. Right. All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Right Time Radio, brought to you every week by Fremont Regional Hospice. We'll be right back after this.
Have you ever been singled out involuntarily to do something that you didn't really want to do? If so, you have insight into the experience of Moses. You know, the Moses, the guy who brought the 10 Commandments down the mountain from God. That guy.
Dr. Michael Ziegler, this week on The Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour is brought to you by St. John's Lutheran Church in Canyon City. Listen Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. here on 1400 KRLN.
Tune in weekdays to Star Country in the 6 o'clock hour for the Senior Minute. Useful whether you are a senior or not. These minute segments are meant to improve your life and lifestyle. Messages range from health and wellness to practical and positive solutions. All brought to you each week by Skyline Ridge Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. Getting to know and treat our seniors individually and as independently as possible. Call for more information, 275-0665. Again, that's 275-0665.
To the Waterhole number 1, where we have the coldest beer in town.
You may wonder what that means.
When beer's too cold, it's slushy.
So we have it just a little above that.
But our beer is cold.
When loading a cooler, some people buy ice to make their beer cold.
Our customers buy beer to keep the rest of their stuff cold.
Our beer is cold.
Come check us out at Waterhole number 1.
1532 Elm Avenue, Canyon City, or call 275-8810.
KRLN weather, sunny and warmer today. Southwest winds at 10 with a high today around 60. Mostly clear this evening, then mostly cloudy overnight. Tonight's low near 30. Partly cloudy, warmer and breezy tomorrow. Tomorrow's high around 64. 29 was our low this morning after a high of 56 yesterday. 53 degrees the temperature at the Weather Center.
Talk Radio 1400 KRLN.
Hi, welcome back to Right Time Radio. This is Elsa Bruno. I'm here with Tom Bruno. And we are going to introduce the first part of his book that he's going to read for you. So, Tom, if you can kind of lay the groundwork for us before you read this excerpt.
Okay, so this is out of the first chapter of The Poet and the Knight Errant. So the poet is a guy named Mameo, and he is a poet. He's the poet for Queen Isabella. And I guess I need to go into a little bit. We're going to talk about setting afterwards, but the setting is, the year is around 1500, not exactly 1500, a little before that. And Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand are on the throne in Spain. They have two things. They did a lot of stuff. If you remember, Christopher Columbus came over in 1492, 1942, something like that. 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Mm-hmm. So they've sent him out, and he has just come back. So that's happening in the background. And they have the Spanish Inquisition, which no one expects the Spanish Inquisition. You remember that? Okay.
Yes, very
Monty
much.
Python. Oh. And then there was a constabulary or police force that Isabella had, and that was called the Hermandad, which means the Brotherhood, or the Greensleeves, or the Verdes Mangas Verdes. So all these things are coming into play. Well, Don Donaldo has determined that he's going to be on this quest for the mustard seed of righteousness. It's a holy relic, and remember, a lot of this is tongue-in-cheek. So he's going out to look for a mustard seed, yes. And he wants Mameo, this poet, this very famous poet, to chronicle his adventure. So he's at the little cottage of Mameo, in order to convince him to go with him on this very dangerous quest. Might be fighting mustard trees or something. Okay. Mameo has gotten famous by listening to a very smart muse named Phoebe. I think all us writers have muses. I'm looking at mine. Okay. So Mameo is not very good as a poet himself, but he is smart enough to listen to a woman who is. How's that? And his muse's name is Phoebe, and Phoebe is actually a supernatural creature. So she kind of lives in her own realm, as do most muses. Okay, so
and what just happened before this scene? Didn't they have an argument?
Oh, yes, Phoebe and Mameo had an argument. So Mameo, the poet, is not on good terms with his muse right now. So he's kind of mad at her, she's mad at him, and here we go. Don Donaldo studied me, and I recall feeling like a bank under the eyes of a safecracker. The diligent Hobart, that's his Mameo's servant, arrived and poured the tea from our fine copper kettle. But Don Donaldo did not reach for it, so intent was his gaze upon me. Tea, Don Donaldo, with a touch of mint from our gardens? It will refresh you from your travels. I gestured to the refreshment, but he still seemed to be turning tumblers in his head as he looked at me. Finally, he ventured this word. Don Mameo, you are a writer of fictions of fantastic proportions. What would you say if I offered you facts? A fabulous tabloid of facts that you would experience firsthand, exceeding all the imaginations of which you have so far written. Your fame would not only saturate Spain, but all of Europe. What would you say? Aside from the subjective nature of such hyperbolic facts, if I could witness such an experience, it would indeed make a marvelous compendium. A fluttering thought toward my contentious muse flitted through my head. Then I make you this proposal to our mutual benefit. Don Donaldo leaned forward on his well-worn leather armor. Accompany me on my quest. You will have exclusive coverage of the feats and fancies, the victories and rewards and glorious completions. You alone will chronicle a journey that has not been undertaken since the great Crusades and the Odyssey of Homer before that. Come with me, O famous poet, and I will make you the most famous of poets, to rank with the revered Homer and his kind. What say ye? My eyes must have widened. I thought, me? Leave my country estate to traipse the countryside on a quest of unknown but apparently lofty regard? My leaving did not seem likely. Immediately the thought of a ballad or epic poem not inspired by my dear, irritable Phoebe filled me with a giddy dread. She would be absolutely livid with scorn and might truly leave me to my own uninspired writings. Some 8 years ago, my scrawled writings were but kindling. The hovel in which I dwelled warmed only when I sacrificed ruined paper to its tiny stove. But since I had given my creative will to her, my fortunes had magnified, and my dreams of fame flamed into a degree of reality. How would the tempest Phoebe rage at the suggestion of inspiration from a true life adventure? The question titillated my mind and brought a laugh to my lips. Laugh thee at me? Don Donaldo's gaze looked stormy. My laugh choked, and I quickly dissembled. Nay, Sir Knight, the thought of asking my muse for leave to ramble the land to chronicle such a venture has me chuckling. Her temper is tempestuous. He paused, but seemed to know where he was driving this conversation. Is she the man behind your triumph, or are you your own man? Verily, I knew not how to think on this accusation. It was true. By all regard, it was true. But to say that I could not make a decision for myself was an affront to my long-subdued manhood, regardless of its veracity. My thoughts stumbling, I played the conversation in my mind I would have with Phoebe. Oh, her reaction I had to see. Don Donaldo waited with a grim visage, bearing the slightest hint of a sneer. I replied, haughtily I hoped, Your umbrage I shall cover with the blanket of my hospitality, for such a decision is mine to make. His mouth quirked up at a corner. I, bristling, But a choice of this magnitude is not made by whim, but by wit. Some thought must be put to task. In conflict of arms or wit, Don Donaldo replied, such decisions must be made with boldness and confidence. Plot a course and step out. Ask thee for a poet or a comrade in arms, for the latter I am not nor intend to be. How had this brigandly knight put me in a corner of my own abode? Yet he pressed. As stated, your fame as a poet has begun, but immortal fame comes at a higher cost. I challenge thee to gird thyself for greatness, for to diary my quest will give thee precisely such everlasting renown. But I cannot have the lily-livered lagging whilst I leave thee for the charge. You must decide. Act. I would not be bullied, at least not by him. I would give him quarter, and his squire, who I presumed was still wrestling with the donkey. Drink your tea and stay this night, and I will give thee word on the morrow. I stood, intending to find Hobart. He stood, nodding with a modicum of civility, and waited. Once Don Donaldo and Squire Gray had been settled in the guest cottage with a meal, I returned to the courtyard and the fount. Reclining on the brickwork around the pool, I summoned my muse. O Phoebe, bright and beautiful, muse of poets throughout time, attend me now, I adjure. What? As she solidified her form into this realm of ours, I, with a jot of perception, thought she might still retain a remnant of her bilious mood. Therefore I began diplomatically. My bright moon, were you attentive to the consultation between Don Donaldo and myself here in the courtyard? Phoebe. No. He inquired of me to accompany him on a quest so that I may document his adventures. What think you of such an adventure? She. Go. Raising an eyebrow. If I count correctly, you've uttered exactly 3 words. Don't you have any questions? Could you expound on your opinion? She showed her perfectly white teeth. But again, my heightened perception and familiarity with her expression suggested that she was not smiling. Oh, Mameo, do you truly value my utterances? I said go. Her smile widened, reminded me of the rictus grin I'd once seen on a bayed wolf. I mean, go. Muse adultery can be cured, but the only efficacious prescription is a hard draught of experience. Go, Mameo. Drink, Mameo. Glut on experience. Frowning at her blessing, I asked demurely, will you come with us? She. I wouldn't miss it. I. Why are you so patently supportive of this adventure? She approached and cupped my face with her hand. The sweetness of her divine breath cloyed slightly. Sweetly, she said, Mameo, you spoiled child, you need to get out of the house.
Oh, that was fun. So I don't know if you noticed, so the writing is definitely of a different time. So I always compare this to reading as brain, like a steak, because it's thick and it requires chewing, as opposed to brain candy, which there's a lot of books out there that are just you don't need to think about it. You just kind of read it, and this one requires a little more thought. So I really enjoyed it, and I've always loved Tom's characters and conversations. So okay,
I love the challenges too of the vocabulary.
Yes, yeah. So okay, Tom. So we were talking about the elements before the break. So let's start with the setting. So you talked about Spain. Okay. You talked about medieval.
Yes,
so
Ferdinand and Isabella are on the throne, and they're consolidating their power. And in this case, Madrid is now the capital of Spain, but in this time, Toledo was the capital of Spain.
Oh, okay.
And so this is just outside Toledo. Mameo is the queen's own poet, and he is inspired by this lady Phoebe, but they're in a cottage outside Toledo, and Don Donaldo has come knocking at his door.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned Phoebe and some of the other characters. So I think you introduced quite a few of them. So tell us about them. Tell us a little bit more.
Okay, well, Don Donaldo is the protagonist. He is he's kind of the anti-hero. He's a thief. He's clever. He has very loose morals, which comes out in the story. I didn't read any of the body parts for our civil audience out there, but when the book comes out, you can get those if that's what you like. He is very tactless. He's a troublemaker. He's a very odd hero. He's not a nice guy. And then Mameo is the other main character. Really, he's the narrator, and he's reading this from the first-person point of view. He's very well educated, but he's not a very good writer. And he through the whole thing, he writes these sonnets, and he tries to get better and better as a poet. And he's very reliant on Phoebe, and she realizes this, and she likes that because he's her outlet into the world. All her creative ideas, which is her creative genius, comes through Mameo, and she couldn't, and she finds it difficult to find poets that will correctly transcribe her creative genius. So he's very unsure of he's very lacking self-confidence and unsure whether he could write without her. So he is an amanuensis, and that is a person who writes and what other people dictate. And I think we ought to take and then Squire Gray is Don Donaldo's squire, and then Hobart is Mameo's servant. And all these four people are going to go on and Phoebe are going to go on this adventure together. Let's take a break. We want to thank Fremont Regional Hospice for sponsoring Right Time Radio, and we'll be right back.
To some, it's always grilling season. So if you fit that category, then come on down to Dryden's and see how we can step up your barbecue game. Dryden's carries a full line of Louisiana wood pellet grills. Grills for whatever the grill master requires. Some say they're the most versatile grill ever made. Grill what you want, when you want, and how you want. Ask about our special financing options like 12 months same as cash. Dryden's at 1001 Main Street, downtown Canyon City.
You can find it at Dryden's.
Fremont Regional Hospice has been providing quality care with dignity and compassion to Fremont County and surrounding areas since 2006. With the realization that every patient is different with different challenges, Fremont Regional Hospice believes in making every moment matter by providing expert nursing care and optimal pain and symptom management. To learn more about the benefits of hospice care, call Fremont Regional Hospice at 719-275-4315 or stop by the office at 1439 Main Street in Canyon City. Fremont Regional Hospice is your hometown hospice.
The benefits of volunteering make a difference in your own life, but it also helps so many others. Family Crisis Services develops and delivers training and education to schools, churches, community groups, first responders, and many other groups. They present information on domestic violence, sexual assault, and those effects on children. This community message is brought to you by Zimmerman's Auto Body. Make a difference. To help out, call 275-2429. Again, 275-2429. Got big dreams for your small business? You're not alone. Assurance Partners is a growing business too. That's why they work with Nationwide, the #1 small total business insurer in the U.S. Nationwide can help protect and grow your business so you can focus on making your small business dreams come true. Give Assurance Partners a call today at 1-800-563-1871. Nationwide is on your side. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio, subject to underwriting guidelines, review, and approval. See your local Assurance Partners at 408 Main Street, Canyon City.
Radio. Welcome back to Right Time Radio, and we are here discussing the book, The Poet and the Knight Errant. So, and we're kind of illustrating, this is a work in progress by Tom, and we're discussing elements of constructing a book. So I think let's talk a little bit about the plot and the conflict and the theme, because those are all interwoven in this book.
Okay. On this book, I was definitely inspired by the character much more than the plot. But the plot really developed quite well when I put the character in some situations. So this next excerpt that I'm going to read is based on, it comes right after Don Donaldo has just insulted one of the Queen's constables. So they're on the run, and they're trying to complete this quest and find the mustard seed of righteousness. And now the conflict has come because he insulted this police officer, basically, and he has sicked the whole police force of Madrid on them. And then instead of just getting out of there, they decide to take refuge with a Jew who, in this time, the Jews had been expelled from Madrid, in fact, expelled from all Spain. But there were still some that had the savvy, and this Jew is named Ishak, and this Ishak is a very wise Jew. He's been a very profitable merchant, and he has managed to get on the right side of some of the government officials and stay in Madrid because that's where his empire, his merchant empire is. So he goes to Ishak to get some information about the mustard seed, and that's where we take up the story. Well, in the middle of the night, so the Jew is been under scrutiny by the Spanish Inquisition, and so they are trying any excuse to get him out of the country. And so in the middle of the night, this is what happens after they've had dinner with Ishak. So Mameo, Ishak, and Don Donaldo. Thugs in the night, I am not accustomed to. I have led this life of leisure to my liking. Had not Phoebe so convincingly convinced me, perhaps commanded me, to attend this quest, my life in the country outside Toledo would have remained blissfully insulatory and serene. The old house rattled with the assault. Men pounded on the back door to the livery as well as the door to the street. I opened my door to the hall to find Ishak, sharp-eyed and dressed to ride, hurrying toward me. Don Donaldo also was dressed, approaching from the opposite way. Ishak: "We flee, gentlemen. Follow me. Mameo, I suggest pants and buskins." The donning of clothing was the antithesis of leisurely, the now battering ram banging at the doors the opposite of insulatory and serene. Don Donaldo from the end of the hall: "Run, Mameo." At the end of the passage, Ishak and Don Donaldo had pulled out a cabinet that I had assumed was built into the wall. Below and behind was a narrow stair leading nearly straight down. Ishak bore a lantern and led. As we pulled the cabinet back into the niche, a sudden shame and dread flooded me. "Hobart and Squire Gray, we have abandoned them." Ishak: "Nay, I have sent them on ahead. I will explain shortly. We must get some distance between us and our unwelcomed guests." Careful but swift, we descended past the first floor to another cleverly disguised door, this one of layered stone. With the heaving of Ishak and Don Donaldo, the small, heavy portal rolled forward. I presumed on some sort of ball and socket caster hidden in the masonry. Once through, we shouldered the door back closed and found ourselves in a many-arched sub-basement. The light faded off into a gloom of arches into the distance. Oddly, or perhaps not so odd for the writer within me, I noticed instantly the Latin inscription carved in the stone itself on the tympanum above the first portal. "Wisdom will save you from the ways of wicked men." Borne on a turbid wave of fascination and fear, I followed Ishak and Don Donaldo through the subterranean maze of arched stones. Domed chambers led to tiny tunnels, followed by wide arched vaults, succeeded by square chambers, and on and on. Most were of varieties of stone, but some timbers supported ceilings where ancient mortars were insufficient. The air was cool, dark, and inert. Don Donaldo stooped under the low arches, while the shorter Ishak and I cleared most with but an inch to spare. Quickly we scuttled, like the insects in the corner of our light, moving past branches and shadowed niches that no doubt underlay the other houses of the quarter above. Don Donaldo: "Where are we going?" Ishak, a hint of irony in his voice mingled with his urgency: "We are now directly under the government quarter. We shall egress opposite the central district and proceed to a vine dresser at the edge of the city. There it is we shall re-meet with your squires and my servant, who have the animals and some supplies." A rumble and scraping echoed through the vaults. I could not perceive whether from above or behind or even ahead. Don Donaldo: "How did you know to send them?" Ishak with an edge of iron: "I am a Jew among hostile Christians. You come to my door, I send out for information. After dinner, when word returns that both the Inquisition and the Hermandad are buzzing with indignation, bad signs. Whether the Hermandad came for you or the Inquisition for me, I took precautionary measures. I have taken many precautionary measures in my life. Being kind to dangerous strangers is one of them. Your squires I sent but 2 blocks from my house, with instructions to proceed to the vine dressers if they do not hear from us in the morning." Muffled shouts reached our ears, and clenching fear gripped my heart. The pursuers had found the passage behind us. Ishak dimmed his lantern and spoke quietly: "We have a good lead, and they do not know which way we go. But caution and more caution will gain us our lives." My hand felt as cold as I held it up to my face. I was ashamed to see it trembling. I pressed down on my satchel to still it. The few items and the money in the satchel might have been all I had left. Another wave of shame crashed into my soul. "Ishak, our savior, we have brought this calamity down on you. I'm sorry. They have battered down your doors and likely wrecked your home. Ishak, likely yes, but you are not the floodwaters, just the chink in the dam. Many have clamored to wash me from my city. I have many friends that have deflected attention from the blemish I am on the face of their Christian city, but no amount of cosmetics can hide what they find repugnant. True Christendom is not in man, but in God. My own expression almost brought me up short as I realized the wisdom of it. Ishak, almost growling. Save your breath for running, innocent Memeo. All man has fallen far, far short. I thought, which is the reason for the Savior, but I said nothing. But Don Donaldo spoke. I am the least of these unsightly men, and that is why I quest for righteousness. Ishak, hotly. Did you not lead these ruffians to my very doorstep? Don Donaldo, 2 steps before me, raised his hand to strike at the back of Ishak's neck. Mercifully, in his distraction, he missed bending beneath an archway and struck his head hard. He grunted and staggered back directly into my arms. I managed to gently lower him to the dirt floor. I, in a low hiss, Ishak. Ishak returned, a scowl of impatience on his face in the lantern light which he quickly schooled into grim determination. We are in this together, against more or less common enemies, for diverse reasons. Let my bitterness not sour the well we must share. This served as apology. Don Donaldo was not badly injured. A cut and a bruise, but no further mental damage. We rose and pressed on, but the altercation revealed something of Ishak that I had not discerned through his hospitable facade. He was indeed bitter. In silence we followed the light of the Jew. Sounds of pursuit were either very distant or imagined. As fear faded into the minutes, I once again marveled at the extensive foundations of the great city of Madrid. These ways could not be unknown, but I imagined that they were largely untraveled. Who uses these underways, Ishak? Ishak, thieves, rabbles, rebels and the dispossessed. They are not safe in dark or day.
Wow, that was a lot.
Oh.
Well, no. You revealed a lot, like with respect to a theme, a part of a theme, and then.
Well, what do you perceive as the theme here, my wife?
The quest for. I think the quest is his quest for righteousness, right? The mustard seed of righteousness, which doesn't sound right. Tell us about that.
So Don Donaldo is under the mistaken impression that righteousness can be earned, and there's no one living that can be righteous enough. They're not good enough to be righteous. So the point is he's really looking for faith, and he finds this. That's sort of a little bit of a spoiler, but he's really looking for faith, and he finds out that he has a good measure of faith already. That his faith was in this quest, his faith that he could find his way to salvation, but it's not that he's very mistaken about what he's looking for, and that comes out later in the thing. There was a mustard seed, by the way. Oh, I can't say that. That's really a spoiler, but but it had nothing to do with righteousness. So that's the theme: is that righteousness can't be earned, and of course you can't beat people over the head with it. The focus has got to be on the story, and that's what I hope I've done with this story.
Okay, so I think we've covered setting, we've covered characters,
plot a bit,
conflict, theme. Oh, so now we're on point of view. So you mentioned briefly that this was in the first person point of view. So explain that.
Okay, first person point of view is using the pronoun I to tell the story. So Memeo is telling the story, and he has a very interesting point of view. He doesn't know everything. He is also, so back then, only the clergy had real good access to the Bible. And so they do not realize that it's not the mustard seed of righteousness, it's the mustard seed of faith. So they're using even the wrong parable. They're really confused young men, and they're setting out on this huge quest that's going to lead them from Toledo through Madrid to Pamplona, where they run into a lot of trouble with a revolution that's going on there, and then finally into the mountains of the Pyrenees. And that's where they find, some cool stuff out there.
Okay, so how is this different than third person? You said a lot of books are written in third person.
Oh, yeah. Most books nowadays, like the series that Lynn and I have been working on with our other authors from across the country, that is all written in third person, which is like he and she and,
they and
right, they and they and so most authors use a limited point of view from one third person character. So in the Romances and Beyond the Veil series, we use the guy lover and the girl lover. We switch between those two point of views, but they don't know what the other person is thinking. They can only read expressions. And you switch between point of views so that you hide things from the reader and you hide things from the characters, so that it creates suspense and you don't know exactly what's going to happen because
tension. Yeah.
So like in superhero movies, they use Spider-Man doesn't know what the evil villain is thinking. Superman doesn't know what Lex Luthor is plotting and how he's going to run into this. What's that, kryptonite? Yeah, kryptonite.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. So, and so you'll use a certain point of view. You'll use, so Superman doesn't know the plot of the evil villain.
Okay, so I read some books that are neither. What would you call those?
Oh, omniscient.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes the author tells everything. He's in the minds of every character. And so he is the omniscient, like a godlike narrator, and he knows exactly what everybody's thinking. But the trouble with that is, why doesn't he tell you what's coming up? Because he knows, So if you have a limited point of view, then you can have a legitimate reason for hiding and creating much more suspense.
Wow.
Well, let's go to a commercial.
Okay. You're listening to Right Time Radio on 1400 KRLN. Three Links Apartments is committed to providing quality independent apartment living for ages 62 and over and disabled individuals who qualify. Spacious one-bedroom and studio apartments with emergency pull cords and located near the hospital. Three Links Apartments are HUD subsidized, so rent is based on income. For information, call 269-9134 or visit them at 1300 North 15th Street, Canyon City. Complies with Federal Fair Housing Act and Equal Housing Opportunity. Three Links Apartments.
Hi, this is Pastor Mike Wooldridge from Living Word Foursquare Church, inviting you to listen in to our new program called The Living Word on 1400 KRLN at 9 a.m. every Sunday morning. Our messages and lessons are right out of the Bible. We are a non-denominational church who believes in the written word. Join us for Sunday worship and fellowship at 10 a.m. at 1710 Mariposa Road in Canyon City. And tune in every Sunday at 9 a.m. to 1400 KRLN.
Fremont County Community Concert Association will present Ball in the House on Friday, April 24th, 7 p.m. at the Canyon City High School. Ball in the House is an a cappella group that has been entertaining audiences of all ages for over 18 years. They make music that'll move you with beatbox and vocal bass under their cool harmonies to create a sound that is hard to believe. This R&B, soul, and pop group have performed all over the United States. Join us April 24th at 7 p.m.
KRLN weather, sunny and warmer today. Southwest winds at 10 this afternoon. The high today around 60. Mostly clear this evening, then becoming mostly cloudy overnight. Tonight's low near 30. Partly cloudy, warmer and breezy again tomorrow. Tomorrow's high around 64. 56 our high yesterday with a low this morning of 29. Now from the Weather Center, 54 degrees.
Talk Radio 1400.
Welcome back to Right Time Radio, where we have been reading an excerpt from Tom's work in progress, The Poet and the Knight Errant. And we've been talking about the elements of writing and constructing and all of that. So, Tom, did you have any... but I would like to take some time for you all to get to know Tom a little bit. But did you have anything more to add about your book or anything?
Well, just that if you have some comments on this... I have Papa's Restaurant. Drop by and if this has inspired you in any way, or you said, you should do this or you should do that. I love talking about our writing. Carrie and I were just talking during the break that sometimes writing is very personal, and for me it is very personal. I think Elsa's going to ask me some questions about that in a minute, But I also think it is an evolving thing. And if I've done something that doesn't make sense or is going to hurt the book in any way, I do like to hear about it before it actually gets out and gets published. And I do have a couple. I have a publisher interested in this one when it's done, and an agent that's interested in this one. So we'll see.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is. Okay,
so come by Papa's and tell me that thing sucks. You need to do this or whatever. But be nice about it.
All right, so we're going to switch gears a little bit because I want you to get to know Tom a little bit more because I know there's a lot of aspiring authors out there. So we went over some of these questions already, so that he had a chance to think about them. But so I want to go a little bit further back in your writing career and kind of work our way forward a little bit. Okay, so is that okay?
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, when did you start writing?
Goo goo gaga. No, I was probably in junior high or high school.
Okay, and so what inspired you to write?
I think really reading inspired me to write because I had read a lot of stuff. I really liked science fiction. I'd read a lot of science fiction, and my wife here, has also read tons of different things. She liked animal books. I didn't.
As a horse girl.
But I read Danny Dunn books when I was a real young kid, and I can't even find those anymore. They're not even in print. And then Hardy Boys, which are still a boy's favorite. And then Doc Savage books, which was about a superhero with no superpowers. He was a crime fighter in the 1930s. And I have another book in the works on that one.
Oh, okay. So what continues to inspire you to write?
Besides you? Provide for you? Just, when I hear really neat science discoveries, I think, oh, that would make a great story, for a science fiction one. On the other side is just watching people. People are, what do I say?
People are strange, and we're all people.
Yes. That's my summary of human nature. People are strange, we're all people. So don't judge other people is the point. But I find people walk into Papa's, and they just fascinate me with their different aspects of their character. I had a guy in earlier this week and just hit it off with all the other customers, but he was just really boisterous and loud, and if you're listening, you know who you are, but because you were really loud and very outspoken. Anyway, I mean, that's kind of the inspiration. You see somebody like that and you go, man, he'd be a great character in a book.
Okay, well, so kind of tagging off on that, we've been married for almost 31 years, and I'm always amazed at what comes out of your imagination.
Me too.
And on the paper. So how do you get ideas? Besides, people, and is there anything else that inspires you to write?
I don't know. Is there? Actually, reading other writing is a big one too. I'll be reading or listen. I listen to mostly books on tape now, or books on CD. Sorry.
MP3.
MP3. That's the new one. Yeah.
Your sons will help you with that.
Yeah. Thank you. My techies. And they'll say something that'll introduce a concept that I think, oh, that is a really cool concept. They could just that one little concept in one little chapter or one little section of a paragraph, and I'll think you could write a whole book on that. And so sometimes that inspires me too.
Okay, all right. So this is a more serious question. So are there parts of Tom Bruno in your characters?
Oh, absolutely.
So who would you say is the character that you most identify with as far as characters that you created?
There's different pieces of me in different things. So in the Zodicus book, the Sparks of Revolution book, which is on Amazon now, that would be the adventurous side, going out there, doing great things to right wrongs. And, Keeler is the main protagonist there.
I think that's pretty spot on, yeah.
Okay, well, the only thing that Keeler didn't have was he wasn't really into the love of words, and obviously.
Oh, that's true.
So Mameo here is my way of really. He is a character that allows me to pour the words on heavy. You can tell he's got a very elevated. That's it, elevated language. In this, it's a style that's not like most common styles now. Most of his styles today are like our Beyond the Veil series. Very straightforward, very simplistic. It gets the meaning across and it doesn't impose on you. Well, Mameo, since he's a writer, he's a poet, he gets to use this flowery and elevated language. And so he writes multiple sonnets throughout, and we don't have time to do one of his sonnets, but he eventually falls in love himself and writes a sonnet to his sweetheart. Oh. And that's something that I love to do. So there's me in that character.
He has written some of those over the years, but in cards and all kinds of stuff, which is a lot of fun. So, okay, so over all your years and experience of writing, what's changed the most?
Well, I understand the craft a lot more. Lynn Donovan has helped me with getting to the point where realizing you need to... I always thought I was showing. I know that you want to show things, not tell people, oh, yeah, it was a really hot day. Well, you want to show that by the man was sweating and the paint's blistering off the walls and things like that. Well, I always thought that I was doing that. I knew that was a thing, but Lynn has taken that to another level. Thanks, Lynn. That's not always pleasant to get corrected, but it's necessary. So if Lynn listens to this, and Lynn, I hope you're feeling better out there. What else is, another part of writing is, networking with other authors. Really enjoyed that. I am not a solitary writer. I love the socialization, and most writers just sit behind the keyboard. Okay. That's it.
Mm-hmm. So I know that we have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of notebooks at home with your ideas, but now a lot of your ideas are on computer. And the internet has kind of, enhanced your research, I guess?
Yes, like this book here, so much research went into this, because I knew very little about Spain in 1500. And I knew King Isabel and Ferdinand were on the throne in that time when Columbus was, this took immense amounts of research, almost as much research as it took to write it. So, the internet really helps. And then, if I could say, you're probably going to ask me, what's new advice for writers, right?
That's right.
Right. Get in front of that keyboard and start writing. Don't worry about the details. Like, this was really rough. You could tell that there were some rough edges as I was reading it. Get it down on paper, on the computer or on paper, whatever. There's no magic formula of where you want to write. But for me, writing on the computer is a lot easier because you can correct so easily. You don't have to retype it. You don't have to
spell check, right?
Yeah, and it's got
just remember to save your work, right?
Yeah. Gotta hit save. That's right.
Oh, there's nothing
Thumb
more
drives,
frustrating than that. So get out there and write. And then I would also say network with other writers. If you want to talk about writing, come by Papa's, call the show. We do take phone calls on this show. It's just not very often that people call in. I guess writers just are shy. Stop it. Get out here. All right.
That, and they're listening to the story. So
that's right.
Yeah.
So we've got about 1 minute left. I want to say, writers, if you've been writing something and you've been kind of shy about sharing it, hey, talk to us. Either email us and send us some writing at righttimeradio@gmail.com. That's WRITE, righttimeradio@gmail.com. And share that with us, or just give us an inquiry. Hey, I'm writing this story. Would you mind talking to me about it at Starbucks? It'd be great. We meet other authors at Starbucks all the time. So please do that. If you want a copy of this show, it's going to be posted by Lynn probably by tomorrow because she's not feeling well today. Okay. So on Right Time Radio. .my-free.website.
.com.
No .com. It's .website.
.website. Okay. Got it. All right. Tom Bruno, Elsa Bruno, thanks for being here.
Hey.
Thanks.
Thanks always for having us,
Thanks
Carrie.
for listening to Right Time Radio on 1400 KRLN.